some rain on the way, and that's why it's feeling confident to be on the move. My name's Scott. It's great to be on safari with all of you guys. I'm teamed up with Jandre on camera. Jamie has headed out on the other vehicle with Tibbs, and also got Nikki on the back who's joining in the adventure with us, getting some wind in her hair out of the final control room where Jerry is directing the show and Tara is lending her a hand. Now we must make sure we don't run over the snow on our way past. It's a wonderful overcast morning, quite cool, 19 degrees Celsius, 56 degrees Fahrenheit, and it'll be interesting to see how long the cloud cover lasts. It could well burn off in the next hour or so, but we'll just have to wait and see. Quite happy that it's overcast. The cooler and more comfortable the weather conditions are, the more likely we are to see animals out and about. Whereas as it gets hotter and hotter, it increases the likelihood of animals seeking refuge in shady areas, which obviously makes viewing a little bit more tricky. This is a live safari, everybody, and if you're joining for the first time, a very, very warm welcome from the Safari Live team. Please let us know you're watching for the first time. It's always great to know when new people are on board the safari, and it's very easy to interact with us. You can hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. We don't have too much intelligence to go on, and didn't hear any lions roaring nearby, but that's not to say there aren't any close to us. To Linda, thank you very much for your kind words. Linda thoroughly enjoyed the opening scene there with that African land snail. It's so wonderful just to hear comments like that, Linda, not only questions but just to know what you guys are enjoying. And the more comments like that we get, the more we can tailor make this safari to you. And that's a critical thing to bear in mind when guiding, which I guess makes this a little bit tricky because we are taking so many people on safari. We therefore have the difficult situation of trying to cater for everyone. And it's been a challenge to try and get used to, but I love the fact that all on one vehicle we've got hugely experienced safari goers who've been following this Safari Live experience for many years, and others who may be joining for the first time. So great the way that seasoned veterans and newcomers can all be on one vehicle, sharing knowledge, sharing excitement. I'm kind of in the central parts of Djuma and thinking of working the southern reaches, whereas Jamie is heading up to the northern reaches. So we've kind of divided up, and I just thought I'd pull over here to show you the rising sun behind this bank of clouds to the east. Beautiful. And as we sit here in silence for a few moments, you'll be able to take in the wonderful bird song and chorus of the morning. It's a wonderful time of the year to listen to birds. While we stop and listen, it's not only birds that we are listening to. By stopping the vehicle, it increases our chances greatly of hearing any other interesting updates that we could receive from the wilderness. alarm calls from a tree squirrel. Even the rasping call of a leopard could be heard, and this is the general area that Karula was moving in yesterday. Spent a lot of time tracking her in the afternoon, and all I managed to find on that tracking exercise was a little snake. I think it was a bark snake, and I'll be sure to post a little video that I took whilst on that walk as soon as possible. Well, there goes the sun. We've spent a few moments listening here, and I think we should continue on. It's kind of a combination of trying to listen as much as you can. You can listen further than you can see, but you also do need to cover some ground, get into new areas, and look around with your eyes to see what's going on. You can gain a lot of information from tracks on the road. So we'll be trying to do a combination of driving and stopping and listening, but it kind of naturally works itself out. But it's a slippery slope to get into the trap of not stopping for the smaller things whilst searching for the main characters, because if you don't stop for the smaller things, you'll be preventing yourself from having those little opportunities to listen. For those of you who were on the sunset safari last night, you would have remembered quite a lot of smoke billowing up from the western horizon. It's outside of the reserve, but there was a fire out there. Not sure what would have caused it or the extent of the damage or whether it's still burning, which is a question through from Linda. She would like to know if there is any updates on what's going on there. You'll notice I've just turned off the road. What could it be for? Something up ahead. Let me just get into position though, and then we'll reveal what it is we are off-roading for. It's going to take me a couple of moments to get into that position, maybe a minute or so. Quick push here, but we're going to be able to wiggle our way through. But Linda, where we are going to be heading shortly after we enjoy this sighting, we will be able to get a view out to the west and be able to tell what's going on there. Now these bush willow branches are just going to pop back up as the vehicle passes over them. This is a tricky customer, so I might actually stop here for a second. It's a large elephant bull, and he doesn't seem to be cooperating with us for now. Let's see if I can't just creep forward into another little gap here. When elephants don't play ball, there's not much you can do. We don't have too much power over them. This bull probably weighs about 5 tons. Looks like it could be a little bit moody, but I'm not concerned. I've checked between his back legs already. He's not in must, a sexually heightened stage. If he was, we would have noticed very wet patches on his inner back legs, and his penis would have been dripping like a broken tap. Also, his temporal glands would in all likelihood be leaking. Between his eye and his ear there's a very small gland. And if you'd like to watch a very, very interesting video on temporal glands, I'd suggest watching a highlights video of the morning we spent with wild dogs. It's on the Safari Live Facebook page, and it's got some incredible footage of wild dogs chasing a hyena, but also giving elephants a hard time. And if you watch very closely in the sequence where the elephant cow and her 2 young calves start interacting with the wild dogs, you can literally see that temporal gland begin to sweat and leak. And I've never noticed it happening that quickly, almost like us getting extremely emotional very quickly, and next thing you know there's tears streaming down your face. It was almost exactly the same with that elephant cow. So quite interesting footage there, and definitely worth taking a closer look at. Now he's calmed down a little bit, so I want to see if we can reposition ever so slightly. John, if you don't mind just keeping the camera on him, in case he does something interesting, as we do get into position, so that everyone can see his behavior as we approach. There we go, boy. We're just going to stop here so you can see by his body language he's not entirely convinced that we are here with good intentions. Settle down, big old boy. We just want to have a look at you. Carry on eating. But the fact that earlier it didn't take him long to resume feeding after his last little bit of kind of concern he showed towards us means, and again now he's just relaxed again, means we just need to kind of ease our way into his life this morning. You could find that this very same bull on a different event wouldn't have lifted his head at us, wouldn't have been concerned at all, but maybe he was in a bit of a funny mood, maybe he had a stressful night. Now, interestingly enough, he's eating a black monkey orange, branch and leaf combo deal, but it's not a plant that you see them eating too often. And the really interesting thing about watching elephants throughout the year in one place is that they do feed on very different types of vegetation at the different times of the year. And obviously at this time of the year the black monkey orange is at its sweetest and most nutritious. You just can't get enough in. Barely finished chewing your last mouthful and you're already shoveling some more leaves and branches into a very large mouth, and they'll only chew their food kind of 3 or 4 times before swallowing it. They are not the most efficient and effective feeders and digesters. White-browed scrub robins calling around us, black-headed orioles. We had a little night drive last night. VM, Nikki and myself headed out to Buffalo's Hook Waterhole to see if there was any action going down there. And as we arrived into that area we saw 2 hyenas chasing one another around wildly. But it happened so quickly and they moved off in just a flash that we were unable to tell exactly what was going on. And then we were sitting at the waterhole and VM was doing a sound recording of the sounds of the night, and we then heard an Egyptian geese, the parents of the little goslings. There's about 7 little goslings that are new additions to the Buffalo's Hook Waterhole, and their parents started squawking, and that was an indication that something was coming down to the water's edge, something that these geese weren't happy with. And we turned on the spotlights, and there was a hyena that came down, and it actually went for 3 different swims or baths just into the shallows of the water until its body was completely blackened. It looked like a seal with a hyena head, and then it marched off into the distance, letting off its loud whooping call. Whoop. So an interesting hyena sighting and enjoyable night drive. We also did hear lions that were calling. It sounded like in Buffalo's Hook. I'm not sure where the Birmingham males have gone. Coalition of 5 up-and-coming males that have taken claim over this area. But I'm hoping it won't be long before they pop into Juma again for a visit. Okay, well, we're gonna keep on moving as this ellie disappears off into thick bush. We have already got some great views of him, and because of his funny mood, excuse me, this is actually so awesome. Check this out. These are the same branches that he's just been feeding on, and maybe I should hold them here. If I'm too close, Jandre won't be able to focus on them. But this is the black monkey orange branch that he's obviously taken a mouthful of. You can see up here where his teeth have broken it. It's still wet. I can feel the moisture, I guess, coming from the branches, but also his saliva. And incredible to think that just a few minutes ago this was in that elephant's mouth, and he just discarded it on this little bush next to us over here, where I found it balancing like that. So that is where we shall leave it. And as we get ourselves out of this little off-road section we got into, we're going to send you on to Jamie's vehicle for an update on how her morning's going.
And a very good morning to all of you, and welcome to our sunrise safari. And as you can see, the sun is slowly rising over Buffalo's Hook Dam. We're continuing our essentially now daily checks of what's happening at Buffalo's Hook and monitoring the water levels, because this is one of the only water sources around here, so it's always a good place to start and come and have a look at what's happening, especially first thing in the morning when everything's coming down to drink. We've got our usual group of hippo in the pond, or well, I suppose in the mud wallow that is now Buffalo's Hook Dam. There are now 5 of them, definitely. They seem to have made this their permanent arrangement. There we go, little mounds sticking up at the top. They've made themselves comfortable. I would guess they've come across from Sydney's dam, but I could be wrong. They've been here for the last week or so. And obviously space has become something of a premium as this drought slowly continues. Oh. Pitter-pattering around the muddy part and picking up whatever plant material they can find. They're geese, so they're grazers. They eat plant material. Scuttling around. They must be careful though, because the dam also has a couple of marabou storks who've moved in. And we mentioned yesterday that marabou storks are primarily carrion eaters, but they will go out hunting. They'll catch fish, and they'll also catch goslings. The goslings must beware. There's a woolly-necked, the slightly cousin of the marabou. Beautiful reflection in the water though. Barbara, where we're sitting with our family of Egyptian geese, you were wondering if the hyenas got any of the goslings. I'm not sure, maybe Scott mentioned that he saw a hyena here last night. Barbara, I don't think so. It's a possibility. I'm counting 6. I'm not sure how many. No, I am counting 7. Definitely counting 7. Scuttling around and moving around between mom and dad. So far, mom and dad goose have done very well in protecting their little brood. So I guess we don't really think about it. It must become more and more difficult with predators regularly visiting this dam. Threats out there. Even a big catfish could potentially eat a baby. I'm sitting high up on the dam wall, different angle.
Shame, it seems like Jamie's vehicle is not sending out the strongest of signals. So you're back with me for now. So my plan is initially to work this general area where we did have Karula's tracks yesterday afternoon. She could be far away from here by now, but you kind of got to just go on the last evidence that you had, and that led us into this general area. She could be nearby, just off one of these roads with a kill, or she could be far away in search of some prey to kill. Always difficult to tell. The great thing about being on safari is that even though we kind of have an idea that this is where she was moving yesterday, other leopard could have come into this area, lion, wild dog. There's just so much going on at the moment that... Whee! Blessings, excusings. Well, I am allergic to cats, so maybe that's a good sign that I'm sneezing. Maybe some cats around the next corner. I think it's a recent development, my allergy to cats. Not ideal. I do enjoy cuddling cats, not the cats out here of course, but cats back in the city, the small regular domestic cats. But since my allergy has started kicking in over recent years, I am not really one to cuddle cats anymore, but good to look at them still. To Roy in New York, and I like the way your head operates. Roy is thinking out of the box a little bit and wondering if we've ever used thermal imaging or infrared cameras for night drives. And Roy, sadly not in my time here on Safari Live, but it is a possibility for the future, so something I look forward to getting involved in, and I'm sure Graham, the big boss and founder of the WildEarth Safari Live concept, is a fan of toys, and as soon as finances and technology kind of meet and make sense for us to get thermal imaging, I'm sure we will jump on board. Ah, well, maybe that elephant bull we saw a little bit earlier was trailing this breeding herd we've just stumbled upon. This is a cow. The cows have got very angular foreheads, almost a 90-degree angle, which would best be seen if she turned completely broadside to us, but you can still see it's quite a sharp angle where the front of her head meets the top of her head, whereas bulls tend to have a lot more of a rounded forehead. Well, I don't recognize this elephant, but quite difficult to tell exactly who's who unless they've got very clear markings. I guess like Fan, whose tusk grows in the opposite direction to normal. And I guess that'll help to answer Mary Ann's question. Mary Ann's interested to know, she knows that elephants aren't territorial, but would like to know if they've kind of got a home range. Good question, Mary Ann. They certainly are not territorial, and that's why it makes it difficult for us to get to know individuals. They move huge distances, and if it wasn't for the fences and the cities in Africa, this elephant could possibly roam over many, many years all the way up to East Africa. There used to be massive migratory paths where elephants could move from southern Africa to Central and East Africa. But sadly then research wasn't as effective as it is now, and now the opportunity to research these animals' movement cycles is becoming a lot more difficult. Well, it's not possible because they cannot migrate those routes anymore. But I guess these animals' home range would be the entire Kruger National Park, Mary Ann, which is over 3 million hectares. It's a trans-frontier national park. It goes into Zimbabwe, the country to our north, as well as Mozambique, a country to our east. And a home range is anywhere where animals could be seen, and therefore, because elephants could move anywhere in the Kruger Park and do move into all corners depending on food and water, as you said, that would make their home range 3 million hectares, I guess. So wonderful that she's nice and close. You can see those long eyelashes, which are probably at least an inch long. I'm surprised they haven't got elephants involved in mascara adverts yet. The makeup companies are missing something here. Look at that now. That's the angle Maybelline need, or whoever they want, whoever they are, I don't know. Maybelline do make mascara, I think. I'm no professional though. I'm going to try and reposition. There's quite a few members in this herd, and maybe there'll be some youngsters that we can get close to. I think what I'm going to do is just get into this little clearing where we were so fortunate to follow the wild dogs yesterday morning. This is kind of the area where we first got a glimpse of them, and then they ran and lay down just up ahead of us and then charged off north after that poor hyena. But they taught a serious lesson. And now, just a few days later, we're going to be enjoying an elephant sighting here. And talking of reminiscing of old sightings, I'm just going to stop here and ask Jandre to show you this marula tree. Now, this is a sighting that happened when I wasn't around, but just in this tree over here, I'm told Tingana had a zebra foal. This time last year, it was just before I arrived. Could have even been to the day a year ago. I arrived on the 20th of November last year, and I remember the guys telling me that they had a wonderful sighting of Tingana there. A lot of you will remember that. And it's one thing that certainly does happen over time. Once working in an area, you start to build memories of all the different sightings and different trees and different areas, different roads. until before you know it, you've got happy memories wherever you're driving, I guess. So it seems like quite a large herd, about 15 members possibly so far. And what I'm going to try and do is loop ahead the members right at the front, and hopefully the rest, excuse me, will follow suit. Edward brings up a good point, and I'm glad you've raised this, Edward. When elephant bulls are in must, the sexually heightened stage, they are extremely boisterous, have got terrible manners, and I like to kind of equate them to a very drunk human male. Kind of lose all track of reality and tend to act in not the best manner. Edward's saying he wonders how elephant cows actually ever end up mating with elephant bulls, because they also get so worked up when elephant bulls are around. Now, you're right, Edward, but when the time is right and when those females are in season, they'll be a lot more receptive to the bulls regardless of their manners and whether they are in must or they are not. Elephant bulls do not have to be in must in order to mate. It's just something that increases the likelihood of bulls being around and putting pressure on females who are coming into season to mate. So it's kind of a two-way thing by elephant bulls coming into must. Like I said, just means that any cow that is in season is more likely going to have a ready bull trailing her. Let's take a close look. There's some young bulls here. They're probably about 10 years of age, so still lurking on the fringe of the herd. Oh, hello boy, are you coming to say good morning? Are you not 10, are you 11? Maybe you're 11. Sorry, I can even call you 12 or 15. I can call you big, whatever you like. But young bulls, they'll probably be with the herd for a few more years before moving off, and then it'll be at least another 15 to 20 years before they've got any chance of mating. Hello to Mike, and again Mike reminds us of a wonderful sighting just a few days ago with that pack of wild dogs when they came across the one elephant cow who we actually do get to know better than most because she's got a very short trunk. Look at how awesome this is. And thanks Mike, that wild dog jumping up into the air checking out that elephant was a great scene. And Mike would now like to know if elephants ever kind of climb on or clamber up onto their back legs. Hello boy, you can come closer if you want to. I'd love to take a closer look at you. We're not going to offer your eyelashes to the mascara world because you're a boy, but thanks for putting on this little show for us. Sorry Mike, as I was saying though, back to your question. Mike's asked, will elephants ever kind of rear up onto their back legs? And most certainly. Usually not in situations to make themselves look bigger or not in situations of danger, but when they are hungry. And in certain areas of Africa, they're almost renowned for doing it, where they'll rear up onto their back legs in order to be able to get their trunk that much higher up into trees where they can then pull down branches and or fruit. So I'm sure if you Google elephant on its back legs or kind of have a look around, you'll find lots of images of elephants reaching up into trees, breaking down branches, and they just get that extra little bit of height by standing on their back legs. So it does happen, but usually only when feeding, as far as I'm aware. Hello Kay in Illinois. I haven't heard your name popping up before. So thanks for sending your question through and getting involved. Kay would like to know if elephants are ever cautious or scared of small animals like rodents, rats or mice. And not that I have seen, Kay, but just like us, I guess, some people have got these bizarre phobias. My sister, for example, is terrified of geckos, harmless little nocturnal lizards that I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with. And just about the only thing that they can harm are mosquitoes, which is in our best interests. And I guess every now and then you may have an elephant who's got a bizarre phobia of tiny things, but never that I've seen. Again, because elephants don't have set territories that are very strict or defined, I'm just going to reposition quickly. I think we're going to get some great shots of these elephants walking through an open clearing now. But because we don't get to spend as much time with individuals as we would like, it's difficult to get to know them as individuals. So you kind of get to know them more as a species. It's a beautiful morning. The clouds are still keeping the sun at bay, which is a good thing. Whoa! That was a serious maneuver. Another young bull. It looks like displaying his size and strength to us. Now, we're going to get you onto Jamie's vehicle. She's got an interesting standoff between two beautiful antelope.
Got some amazing displays happening here. I'm hoping they're going to continue. There's 3 very large Nyala bulls trying to intimidate each other. There he's doing his slow walk. He hasn't quite fully done the piloerection, but it's starting. Look at the hairs on his back. There they go. Slow motion dance. Making his way up towards the other males. What he's probably going to do is start taking his fury out on the bushes as well, which is what he was doing earlier. Look at how puffed up he's got. Making himself look really big and scary. There you can see the other male in the top behind the bushes in the top right of your screen. And this is Nyala fights at its fiercest. Not quite at its fiercest, but almost at its fiercest. This is intimidation. I'm bigger than you. It's not worth fighting me. Here comes the other male. He's also fur up. It always amuses me. They stand sideways towards each other. It's known as lateral presentation. Present your biggest side to the enemy. And then avoid conflict at all costs. So it's so important to make yourself look big and strong and intimidating. And naturally the best way to do that is to slow dance. And if we sit and watch them for a while and we get them in their full display, they'll start lifting their feet up higher and higher. I've only ever once seen Nyala bulls come into physical contact. Most of the time their battles are settled this way. And of course a useful tactic where fights can be vicious and quite dangerous, it's a good idea to intimidate your opponent first. But of course, it's always important to make sure you start each morning with the most important meal of the day, even if you are in the middle of a display. Breakfast is very, very important. So stopping for a nibble every now and again might just happen. Now there's no females as far as I could tell, so most of this is just bluster. Stop for a quick groom as well. Fur still erect. That is known as piloerection. And it's when you see Inyala bulls at their finest. Although he's quite a scraggly looking guy. There he goes, thrashing vegetation. I'm not repositioning because I don't want to disturb him, but I'm going to try and get you a better position. If you can't take your fury out on your opponent, you might as well take it out on the neighboring bushes. There's actually 4 of them all around us. He's moved off. I think he's decided maybe he's not the biggest bull in the pile. I still want to get you to loop around and we can try and see the others because they're all displaying for us nicely. Okay, yep, he's decided he's not come out victorious. So he's going to stomp on that bush because at least that doesn't fight back. Oh, must be very frustrating. Sometimes the best way to rid yourselves of the frustrations of losing a battle is to take it out on the ground. There's another purpose behind that. They have scent glands around their eyes, so it's also a way of passing his scent onto the vegetation. A little bit further into the block as he moves off. The one is now in full slow motion dance. It's a very difficult view. It is really, really thick, but let's try and see if we can get a view. If I duck my head down, he's in the full slow motion swing of things. 1 foot up, 1 foot up. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty intimidated right now. I'm not sure how it works, but somehow I can move really slowly, translate into Inyala language. I'm bigger and better than you are. Okay, let's try and reposition without disturbing them, because this could go on for quite a while. The other male, there's actually 3 of them off to the front of me, not counting the 4th who has moved off in disgust. And I think slightly disgraced, though at least he managed to rid his frustrations on the bush. Now I've mentioned that it's done by the alpha male bulls of the group, and I hear that, I didn't see it, I heard about it. I believe that James and Brent did a slow motion Nyala bull dance. So thanks Donna for that reminder. I might need to have a look at that at some point. Just find the YouTube video for my entertainment. Who won, as a matter of interest? Who did the best slow dance? Nyala bull slow dance. I've mentioned that I find this hilarious, and it's where the Nyala bulls are truly displayed to their best, or their best look, I suppose. Stop here for now. They've all decided that their differences can be put aside in the interests of breakfast. But Laura, I agree, it's very similar to what domestic cats do, that where they slowly walk around each other all puffed up. It's the same idea, essentially. intimidate your opponent to the point that rather than fight you, he gives up. Now, I would say that we're looking at the winner of this particular contest. To me, he looks like the biggest. And I said I think he's the winner. They decide by, oh, he's going to go thrash some vegetation as well, just to reinforce how big and scary he is. And Laura, you were wondering how they decide who wins. For the most part, it's by sheer intimidation. The biggest male struts away with his honor intact, and the smaller males give him his space. I've seen it come to blows once, as I said. It was actually in the garden of a camp I was living in, and that was serious because there was a female involved. This is more posturing than anything else, just determining their hierarchy in their little group of bachelors. But this was over a female that was clearly an estrus, and 3 big males about this size were fighting each other, horns clashing. It was actually incredible to see. I'd never ever seen Nyala come to blows before. And they'd already chased off some poor little Nyala who was his horns were about half the size, but he is really having a go at that branch. It's upset him terribly. Hopefully he's going to continue, because I'm going to shift forward to get you a better view. This was an interesting battle, though, that I watched, because they chased away some poor young male. Stop here. They chased away a poor male who was much, much smaller than them, and he was hiding around the back of the building, watching the goings-on. And whilst the 3 males were busy fighting, he snuck around the other side of the building, found the female, and promptly mated with her, whilst the others were distracted. We were all cheering him on, as you can imagine. A little bit of brains before brawn there in that particular situation, but mostly the battles are decided by intimidation. Breakfast time. Now that he's thrashed the living daylights out of that poor bush, he's going to eat it. I've got a photo somewhere of Nyala bull that was thrashing vegetation like that, and he actually ended up stripping the branch, and it was a V-shaped branch that wound up on either side of his neck. So in the end he was wearing just a giant tree, like a necklace, a victory necklace. In terms of size, Jane, you wanted to get a little bit of perspective in terms of size. In Nyala bulls and Kudu females, you wanted to know if they're roughly the same size. Yes, a sub-adult female would be about the size of an Nyala bull. Are they going to... Oh, they're now going to groom each other. That's an interesting one. A friendly battle between brothers. Jane, yes, a small sub-adult Kudu female is about the size of a Nyala bull. You can see it's not serious. As I said, this is a group of bachelors essentially just determining their hierarchy. And from watching Nyala fights, and I've seen them fight a lot, the aim is to pin your opponent's head to the ground in quite a few cases, which the one on the right is doing quite effectively at the moment, but gently. His tail's still wagging, not puffed up. Yeah, he's definitely the stronger male. Unfortunately, I can't really... Let's try and reposition. Hopefully they're distracted enough that we can get a slightly clearer view. There we go. If I get any closer, they will stop what they're doing. It's escalated slightly. Still, I wouldn't say a serious battle. How amazing is this? I just said to you, I've only ever seen them come to physical blows once. And now we've got two of them doing it. And it's escalated. I think the testosterone's pumped a bit. And now they really want to see who's boss. Oh. And our victor, I think, emerges. Still the one that was on the far right. He is bigger. But his opponent is... I was going to say his opponent is coming back, but I think his opponent is just looking for more breakfast. Interesting. Going to sniff. We chatted a bit about the Nyala dance done by Brent and James. Thank you for sharing that, Ed. And I hear that James, Donna, and Curious One, you all think that James was the victor. Maybe the next fireside chat we should have a clashing of horns. I'll have to watch it and see. It would not surprise me if James had performed the best Nyala dance. Clashing again. See that twisting and turning of their heads, trying to get an advantage over the other, to push their head down to the ground. Now this is a gentle fight, but they can escalate to the point that one of them could kill the other. It does happen. And occasionally they get stuck together with those curved horns. Not as often as Kudu do, but it does happen. Itchy ear. You can't fight with an itchy ear. That's better. Ready to go again. Yeah, that one is definitely... Oh! Could have got the angle wrong. He's bigger, but his smaller opponent has got quite the technique. Stare down. It's almost like rugby players before they go into a scrum. Sorry if that reference, it does not translate well into, but it's almost like they touch, there's that touch, pause, and then engage as they fight. Oh, it's getting serious now. The little one knows when he's caught, so he ducks out of the way and then returns each time. He's trying to outmaneuver the larger one, and he managed it that time. Come on, boys. Oh, breakfast time. Can't fight on an empty stomach. Priorities are important. And as I said, this is not a serious competition. They're young bulls. No, sorry, they're not young bulls. They're bachelor bulls. There's no females around. So really, it's all about posturing. You can imagine a group of men who are all friends with each other, and the play fighting that might happen in that sense. It's very similar to what these boys are doing. It was amazing to see, but I think they are pretty much done for the morning. They've all separated and heading off to their respective breakfast spots, possibly to then thrash the bush every now and again to take their frustrations out. But I believe that Scott has a monitor lizard to show you, so let's head across and see that wonderful reptile.
So this is a knobthorn acacia tree. It's a beautiful specimen. At first glance, it doesn't appear like anything too serious is going on within the tree, and there isn't. On second and a slightly closer inspection, you probably can't see anything too interesting either. But as Jean-Andre zooms in, he is going to reveal a surprise. And it's hiding out on one of the horizontal limbs of this tree. You can possibly start to make something out now. Where is it? What is it? Crested barbet's calling its shrill grrr in the background just for a bit of suspense. Now something may be looking a little bit obscure on the bottom of the bottom horizontal branch. A little bit of a shape, a head sticking up. And now you can see it as Jean-Andre tweaks some of the settings on the camera. You'll notice there's a rock monitor lizard tanning, getting an early morning tan here. How awesome is this? And well done to Jean-Andre for spotting this large reptile. It's probably about 2.5 feet in length from tip to tail, and they're quite comfortable up in trees, the rock monitor lizards, as are the water monitor lizards. They do enjoy spending time up in trees, basking in the sun, and these specific monitor lizards will also do a lot of their hunting in trees and in cavities in trees. Now, I've heard a funny noise behind me, and on closer inspection maybe worth swinging the vehicle around to show you what's going on there. But great, good to see that monitor lizard suntanning. And now we can show you another animal that's very silently crept up on us. Well, I haven't done a very good job of getting the vehicle into a good spot here, so I've made Jean-Andre's life tricky. But another elephant, a young bull, and we heard this kind of crunching noise. I wasn't sure what it was. I was hoping it was Shadow chewing on an impala, but it turned out to be this elephant that was sneaking up on us, and you can see by his posture, not entirely convinced with our ongoings this morning. Okay, let me reposition because Jean-Andre is twisting his body into very strange shapes, and we're going to send you back to Jamie while we reposition to that very interesting Inyala sighting.
Believe it or not, these boys are still at it. They stopped their snacking and continued their fighting. They're probably going to spend most of the morning. It is a nice cool morning. Here they go. I've lost track now as to who's who. I have to double check. I think the larger bull is still the one on the right. There's dust flying now. They're obviously quite evenly matched, which is why this battle continues. Here we go, that slow advance before the proper conflict, or proper contact. Jostling for a good position before they start. Jennifer, I think you're absolutely right. The one on the left is smaller, from what I can tell, but his ivory tips, so the white patch, moving at the tips of the horns, his are longer. And I think you're right. We've often spoken about that. It is a sign of age and maturity of an Inyala bull. So the one on the left is older, but smaller. So he's got more experience, and I think that's why these two are so evenly matched. He's definitely noticeably smaller, but he keeps initiating, and he's got some clever moves up his sleeves. His horns aren't as curved, and he's using them to get into you. If you watch the way he moves his head from side to side, the bigger one is blocked at every turn, and whenever he gets into a bad position like now, he ducks away and then rethinks things And we've got the age-old struggle here of age and experience versus youth and strength. The larger one, in answer to Lucy's question, is darker not because he's older but because he's younger. His fur is still in prime condition. He's in the prime time of his life as a Nyala bull. And the older one, they do tend to go slightly paler with age. Stand off for the moment. I mentioned earlier, they can get locked together. They don't face the same risk that Kudus do. Anna Marie, you were asking if they get locked together like Kudu do. And for new viewers, Kudu do fight in a very similar way, but their horns are more spiraled and curved. And it's actually quite common for them to get hooked together when they fight like this. Nyala, it's less common. Their horns are a different shape. I have heard of it happening, but for the most part it doesn't result in death in the same way that it does with Kudu. They can get out of it. They can unhook themselves and free themselves. The one on the right relying on brute strength. Laura, you're right, when they really get into contact, then they are just like sumo wrestlers trying to push each other. But there's a lot of skill here as well. Those horn tips are sharp, and both of them have a way of blocking to stop themselves from getting any kind of injury. As I said, I don't think that they're out to seriously get each other. It's about establishing dominance in this hierarchy, in the hope that when a female does come along, these battles will be remembered. It's actually almost practice for the real thing. You know, you can see the older one has got the younger one in quite a good position. He's got his head down. Oh, but again, the younger one just has that strength to push his head back up again. It's all about horn positions. That is where the best part of, well, the technique lies. And I think the winner of this fight will be determined by who gets the best horn position, not just strength. I'm going to be quiet for a moment so that you can actually possibly hear the sounds of their horns clashing. I picked, I think, the wrong moment to stay quiet there, because they were in a standoff. There wasn't much clashing going on. See the clouds of dust. I wonder how this is going to end. I wonder how long they're going to continue this for. go, you can hear the horns clashing. Something I should have noticed a while ago, and that the Nyala have also only just noticed, is there's actually some spectators to this fight. There's an entire group of Duggar boys who've been watching us the entire time. They've been sleeping. Oh, Drongo. That was noisy. Flying overhead. If I duck my head down and Ted zooms in there, there's the spectators of the fight. I'm not sure who they're rooting for, but it's obviously interesting enough that they've now got up to have a look. And that's what the Nyala stopped to look back at. I don't think the Nyala even realized they were there either, so I don't feel too bad about the fact that it took me a good 15 minutes before I realized they were there. Admittedly, they were lying down. Possibly still not an excuse. I probably should have seen the big herd of buffalo there. They had to stop for a quick break, but I think they're going to continue on. They're still clashing horns. It's an interesting question. We have an interesting question about, we've heard the sound of the horns crashing and clacking together, and as I said, their attention is distracted as well, because they've only just noticed the buffalo. So would this make them more vulnerable to predators? In terms of attracting predators, I don't think so, but if there was an animal that came through and happened to spot them, something like a leopard or a lion, it would definitely make them more vulnerable, because their attention is distracted. They haven't even noticed what's going on around them. An interesting point that was raised. Let's see if they're going to continue on. So yes, that kind of level of distraction we see with impala rams as well. And there seems to be something in the air. I'm just going to be quiet for a moment. I could hear two things. I could hear impalas rutting, and I could hear rollers giving off their territorial call. So there's obviously, and it could well be, because the buffalo were also looking frisky earlier, it could be that the animals are all reveling in the drop in temperature that this morning has brought. It's not going to stay this way, but for the moment it's definitely got a bit cooler. Hey boys, are you done yet? Is it a stalemate? And quite possibly, as Chris Rogue has suggested, the end of this should end with a quick drink in the pub, together as mates once again. Oh, quick ear scratch. I think, I was about to say I think it's over. Nope, I was wrong. Here we go again. There is definitely no clear victor in this conflict that we're watching. What an amazing sighting that we've had this morning, and they've so kindly stayed in that open patch. It's almost like that is the line in the sand. Oh, who is that? That was the older male pushed off by the younger male. I think. I shouldn't have said anything about them staying out in the open. I think they heard me. Peggy, I'm glad you are enjoying this as much as I am. I've also not really seen them come into conflict like this. As I said, I've only really seen a proper Nyala fight once in my life, this is maybe the second or third time I've seen gentle sparring, so how amazing is this that we get to enjoy it? Now Peggy is one of our regular viewers and has only really seen them doing their little dance and not come to blows in the same way they have today. Obviously sometimes a dance-off isn't sufficient to determine who wins the battle, but I think this time it really might be over. They've stopped for a nibble, both of them. Could just be half-time snacks, but I think it might be done with that last final big push. That was amazing. I really, really enjoyed that. It was one of the things that I love about this job is you actually get to sit and watch the way that these dynamics play out and really get to see how they practice that technique. We saw how they were jostling not directly at each other to push, but to try and find an angle where they could lock horns and then put the other Nyala's head down towards the ground. It's such an interesting way to experience an Nyala battle. I've seen others disappear off. Vernie, you might have missed the beginning of this whole sighting. We started off with just them doing their lateral display. So yes, they did do it earlier, where they pilo erect, their fur stands up all along their back, and then they do that lateral presentation. Present your biggest side to your opponent and then try and make yourself look even bigger. And then in conclusion, do a very slow dance. Now there were 4 males here originally, and the slow dance scared off 2 of them, and they disappeared off in opposite directions to go and thrash some bushes and show the bushes how big they are, because it didn't work with these 2. And then at this point, at the point that the dance didn't work anymore, then these 2 started sparring. But they're definitely done for now. It's breakfast time, and possibly even, as Chris Rogue suggested, time for a drink at the pub. And while we leave these Nyala to go about their morning business, let's head back across to Scott and see what he's up to.
Sounds like you guys just had a wonderful sighting with those Nyala and Jamie. So a little bit jealous, I must say. You don't get to see that interesting behavior between males of any species really that often. So well done to Jamie for getting you that action. We have been very slowly perusing through Arathusa, and we are now on kind of our western boundary. And it's one of my favorite parts of Arathusa. There's some beautiful scenery and also beautiful prospects, because this is kind of the overlap, the buffer zone of 2 male leopards, one called Tingana and the other called the Anderson male. Excuse me. Now the Anderson male we've only seen twice. Very brief views of him, so it'll be great to see him again. Failing that, Tingana would be equally as wonderful to see, or even one of the girlfriends that they both share, a female leopard called Shadow. So all likely prospects in this area. In terms of leopards, lions, we could bump into anyone. The Salalas, the Shimungwes, the Birminghams. And all the other usual suspects could also surprise us at any stage. Chatting a lot about memories this morning, and just a great one brought to attention from Chris Rogue. And thank you very much, Chris, for reminding me and shortly all of us of this sighting. It was, I'm not too sure when it was, Chris, but probably kind of midway through the year, June, July, maybe before then, when we were tracking Kunyuma Was it Kunyuma or Quarantine, Chris? I can't remember. It was one of those two brothers. Chris seems to think it was Kunyuma, which you're probably correct about. My memory is hopeless. Anyway, we were tracking this male leopard, and it had been the case for quite some time, unsuccessfully though, that morning. And I thought to myself, let's just go to the hyena den side and have a look over there. And I just couldn't resist trying to keep working out where this leopard went, so I kept begging you guys to forgive me for continuing the tracking exercise. And I said, let's just go and check one last spot where he may have crossed through a little riverbed in an area called Philemon's Cutline. And as we got to the riverbed, I stopped the vehicle, and then I was going to... I did jump out to see if there were any tracks in the nearby riverbed. Stopped the vehicle. As I jumped out, literally right over here, the leopard took off from probably a meter or so. It was lying up in some phragmite reeds in the riverbed where I was about to go and check, and it ran a few meters. I was still standing at the door of the vehicle by the time it ran off, but then we continued to get some great sightings of it, and naturally my heart was racing furiously. Excuse me, I just dropped my blankie, my booster chair, which I'll put back in position now. But yeah, Chris, what a magical morning that was. I'm glad when I jumped out to track the Birmingham coalition, they were not just a meter or two away, like that leopard was, but probably about 30 or 40 meters away when I realized that their tracks led us to the sleeping lions, basically right under our noses. There's a few hyena tracks heading down this road, so maybe they've caught wind of a carcass, or maybe they were just doing their regular patrols. They cover huge distances every night, hyenas, and you find tracks on most of the roads you drive around, actually every morning. Come on, the Anderson male. He's a massive male leopard and would love to spend some more time with him. As we're getting into the calving or lambing season, I'm happy to hear that Simone is already thinking about what could happen and clearing up possibly a few myths and legends on the various animals and their abilities during the calving period. One animal that has a lot of misconceptions is the impala. Some people will be told that they're young and give birth only after the first rains have fallen, which is impossible. There's no ways that they'll be able to hold back birth for any given period of time, and when it's time to give birth, just like a human, you have to go ahead and deliver. And another question, or a similar thing I guess linked to that, is the ability to abort fetuses, and that's what Simone's wanting to work out. Whether or not impala will have the ability to abort a fetus during the drought conditions that we're experiencing. And yes, Simone, I guess they do have the ability in a sense, but more likely it's that they are physically incapable of further nurturing that fetus because of lack of nutrition, and therefore they'll essentially have a miscarriage. It's not like a planned abortion, but through default, because they aren't feeding well, their body will automatically decide to abort that fetus. But it won't be like a conscious decision where one day they'll weigh up the odds and be like, well, it's time to abort. It will be a natural progression over time, and as any female impala loses enough condition, well then she'll no longer be able to raise that fetus, and it will die and be passed through her system. So I hope that clears things up, Simone. And also, like I said, they do not have the ability to hold back giving birth for any period of time. this drought continues, which in all likelihood it's going to, we are still going to see young impala running around. The only thing is that they are not going to have a fortunate scenario to be brought up in where their mothers will have lots of food, where they ordinarily would during the lush summer bounty, which has not yet arrived. It's just going to be hard at times for the young impala, as almost as hard also for their mothers, who will have the responsibility of trying to raise their young as well as look after themselves. Okay, very good. We have got some leopard tracks over here. Just going to try and pull over in order to be able to show you them. Not going to be easy. I'm not sure how fresh these tracks are, but there are some leopard tracks here. They are heading in the opposite direction to us. Andre, can you get to kind of that area down there? Yeah. There's one. You can see the back pad. Again, not very clear in this loose sand. The toes on front, one, two in the middle, and then another one on the side. Looks to me like the tracks of a female leopard. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump out quickly and try my best to...
Sorry everybody, I'm just chatting on the Game Drive channel. Bear with me one moment and just have a look at this beautiful buffalo bull. Beautiful is possibly the wrong word for it. Sorry guys, bear with me one moment, this is quite important. I'm just listening to the update about lion tracks on Juma. Now we've come to a bit of an impasse here. I was travelling down Cheetah Cut Line and we found this battle-scarred warrior. Just have a look at him. Something's happened to his eye on the left, well, on your right. I'm not even sure if that eye is actually there or not. I think he might have lost it. Doesn't help that he's half asleep and it's drooping down, but I think he might have lost that eye. And look at that huge dent in the bone structure of the boss. You can just imagine the impact that must have chipped away bone that is completely solid. And he's lost the tips of both horns as well, perfectly symmetrical. Definitely had seen some serious fights in his life, not like those Nyala bulls playing with each other. This is a warrior who's seen some serious action. Quite comfortable though in the sand, ruminating. I couldn't bring myself to stir him. When I do move on, I'm going to have to shift around and try and get to the other side of him. He's quite happily sitting and ruminating. That casual chewing. This is a nice cool morning for it, and I think he's found himself a very comfortable patch of sand. Oh, done with that cut ball, and up comes the next one to start chewing. We'll sit with him for just a few moments longer, just because I am loath to disturb him. Look at those extraordinary ripped ears. I still can't see, because he is so contentedly half dozing, I still can't see if that eye is there or not. It's definitely got an injured eyelid. Hard to tell. Trying to double check through my binoculars. Oh, incredible looking old boy. That dent in his boss. We see it quite a lot on these old buffalo bulls, but that's a really significant patch of bone that's been eaten away. And what you'll probably find is that there's partly injury and then partly the bone subsiding away. It might even have got infected and just eaten away at the bone there, leaving a huge battle scar on the top of his head. And he's probably past the age now where he's going to get involved in all of those shenanigans, but he's looking healthy. No ribs sticking out. His pelvis doesn't look like it's sticking out at all, so he's well fed and quite contented to just live his life as a solitary male. He might meet up with other boys along the way, but for the most part he's very happy. Oh. Now I know that Lisa and many others, and he seems to be old and quite beaten up, and I think you're right. I think that's exactly what he is. He's seen his fair share of the comings and goings of life. You might even find he's escaped 1 or 2 lion hunts in his time. He's almost definitely escaped 1 or 2 lion hunts in his time, but still going strong. He might look a little bit droopy and a little bit battered, but he's probably all the wiser for those experiences. Hey boy. And right now he really couldn't care less what he looks like. Battle scarred. Please bear with me one moment. James is trying to get hold of me on the Game Drive channel. Go ahead. I have to try not to have too overlaying conversations here. Just have a look at this beautiful boy while I try and chat to James. Yeah, James, standing by. Copy that. Thanks, James. James, there is reports of Nkonzo of Ngala going west along Central from Drakensberg Junction. I'm just on Cheetah Cutline Junction, Leadwood. Copy that, thank you. Guys, there was some exciting updates on the radio that there were lion tracks moving from Cheetah Cutline, which is where we are now, across towards the Djuma Dam. So keep your eyes peeled on the dam. They might be coming across for an early morning drink. I will be heading there in a moment. But before I do that, I've picked up a little something that I'd like to quiz you on. And there's easy parts to the quiz, and then there's hard parts to the quiz. And I'm going to ask you 3 questions about this particular material. I will say that it is not fresh. It's old and dried. That's your first and only hint that I'm really going to give you. Let's have a look at it. Right, obviously there's leaves. That's quite clear. Things I want to know. What is it? As in, where did it come from? What animal did it come from? And bonus points if you can guess what leaves these are, what tree this came from. Just a little interesting quiz for you all. I'm going to keep hold of it so that when you do send your answers through, you can we'll chat a little bit more about it and where it came from. And I've also picked up the sample of the leaves that I think it is. The leaves are bonus points because I suspect I know what they are. I'll accept 2 answers from them though, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it is. Alright, so let's see if you can guess what it is, where it came from, what animal did it, and what tree it was munching on. And you can send those through to #SafariLive on Twitter. Oh, bits of leaf matter blowing casually into my face. You can send those through to #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. All right, we've got a plan now, and the plan involves going to look for some lions, which is great news for this gentleman, hey boy, because it means I don't have to disturb him. Good luck, mister. I hope that your war wounds mean that you're all the wiser for it. You've got the experience to survive onwards for many years. He's an old boy. He's definitely over 10. He's definitely seen some interesting life, or had some interesting life experiences. All right. Back up Cheetah Cut Line towards Central Road. Let's find out where these lions have vanished off to. Before we go racing off to figure out where lions have vanished to. A special treat. A warthog that actually wants to stick around for the moment. Resting on its ankles. Those are not its elbows, it's its ankles. Oh, quite a young one. Not sure where the rest of them are. This one's only just reached. Oh, something startled it. It pays to be alert if you're a young warthog. This one's barely got any tusks. Just tiny little bits of white poking out of its cheeks. Still got the fluffy white cheek spots or cheek patches of fur, so that it looks like it does have proper tusks. But you're not fooling anyone, warthog. We can see how young you are. Snuffling around. I chatted yesterday about tracks that caught me out in my tracking exam many years ago. One of the ones that nearly caught me out, but luckily didn't, was a warthog ankle track in mud. So basically what it's doing now leaves very indistinct impressions in the mud. And that's why I love tracking, because it tells you the story of what happened, even if you don't see the animal. There's a very pretty purple flower in front of it as well. I'm not sure which one at this distance, and that is on the Torchwood side, so we can't go and collect it and figure it out. That warthog's enjoying whatever's around there, munching away at the roots. It could be a Matabele violet, that purple flower. It is something that they enjoy eating the roots of. Hello, little warthog. Wonderful flowing locks across the top of the warthog's back. Now, supposedly they're meant to be one of the ugly 7 out here. I don't think so. I don't think they're ugly at all. I think they're fascinating. And of course, even when it does grow those tusks that are only just starting to poke out, it won't be the top ones that predators have to worry about. It will be the ones underneath that are rubbed to razor-sharp points and edges. And I would say you're looking at an animal that's been responsible for a couple of my near heart attack experiences whilst walking, because they back into those burrows that they live in. And if threatened, if they feel like there's something threatening them, they might come rushing out head first. And you definitely don't want to be on the receiving end of those tusks. Oh. Off. Tail in air. Disappearing. Into Torchwood. Alright, let's go find those lions. watching the little warthog trot alongside me. I'm going at, I don't know, probably around 20 kilometers, maybe a bit less, 20 kilometers an hour. I would tell you precisely, but of course speedometers out here aren't a necessity. But I'm going fairly fast. This warthog is not racing, he's trotting, she's trotting, and is way ahead of me already. It's sometimes useful to just have a bit of a reminder of exactly how fast everything is out here. Trot, 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 trot. And off into Torchwood. Well done, Tebs. Tracks coming through. Right, what road was that? I need to concentrate. That was Mumba. Central is the next one. It's very easy to get distracted when you're chattering away and not really paying attention to where you're going. It's usually quite a helpful reminder to just take notice of where you might be. And it's sometimes very easy to get quite absent-mindedly lost. Flower that was in front of that warthog, I couldn't get close to it to properly determine exactly what it was. One of my suggestions in answer to Lisa's question was a Matabele violet, although it tends to grow in more rocky areas than that was there. There's so many different purplish blue flowers out here. One of them is the Commelina, which I'm sure that Brent has discussed with you at some point, because it's got quite a few medicinal uses. I'm trying to think what other examples. I don't think it was a Commelina is quite a good option. There's also bush violets, there's foxgloves. As I said, I couldn't quite see or get close enough to properly identify it. I'm just listing some of the ones that fall under the blue/purple wildflower category. And that to me has always been, there's a lot of different approaches to learning wildflowers. My approach has always been color first. Learn them in lists of colors and then you can tick them off that way. It has been something I've struggled with in the past. Is one of my favorites to drive along, this cheetah cut line. Now if these lines did come across, here's Central Junction. Let's stop at the junction and just see if I can catch any tracks. Interesting to know who these lines are and where they've come from. I know that the Birmingham boys as well as the Styx Pride were to the south of us yesterday. Hello lions. That's a big male track. Interesting. I'll shift around a bit so I can show you. They're a bit, oh, maybe we can get them. Tebs, if we can get those tracks there, that would be awesome. In the early morning sun. There's our lions. Big male. That track is probably about the size of my hand. Easily the size of my hand. And this lion, trying to judge walking speed. This lion's walking fairly fast. He's not strolling. His back track is slightly overlapping his front track. He moved fast around this corner. And there's a female as well. I can see smaller tracks moving in across the junction. Let's go figure out who it could be. One male, one female. Sounds like there's a potential there for shenanigans. I would not be surprised. Let's backtrack a little bit. Scott had that one female with the male around the Djuma Dam about a week ago. and we never fully identified who she was or where she came from. I suspect one of the Styx females might be an estrus, and this is one of the Birmingham boys keeping her company in her time of need. Down this road towards Central. Coming through, and some interesting options. I have my suspicions about it, but I'm going to allow for 2 answers for the animal that did it, because that would be a very difficult one to determine. Okie dokie, bear with me a moment. Just figure out where these tracks are going. Down here. Interestingly, I came down this road earlier. I don't remember seeing any lion tracks. I definitely didn't see any lion tracks. I wonder how far ahead these lions really are. I think I need to chat to some friends in high places, or at least some of the other guides who are wandering around out here, see if they've got any updates on those lions. Saxon for Jamie. Texas, if you called in those in Ngalo and Konzo on Central. Okay, copy, thanks. And the one, the daughter, and one, the fuzzy, is the Birmingham's and maybe Styx. Copy that, thank you. Okay, we've got a summary of copy, thanks very much. Okay, update. There are 2 Birmingham boys on Chitwa to the south of us. There is one Birmingham boy with the female who came onto Juma, did a loop, and went back onto Torchwood. They are mating, and it's definitely a Styx female with a Birmingham boy. Could well be that female that we saw a week ago. But there are 2 males missing, and Saxon thinks they are somewhere here, so let's go looking for Birmingham boys. He said to me that I must check very carefully around here. Now, the tracks disappeared into this block, popped out, some of them popped out around Wari Pan. So probably the lions are between us here and towards Buffelshoek. There's a good chance they're going to start heading towards Buffelshoek Dam as well to get a drink, since they have been passed over by the female. They've definitely not continued all the way down here. Must be crossing up this way. I wonder which male it is mating with the female. It's so interesting the way that the dynamics of the Birmingham boys are playing out at the moment. I mentioned earlier, or maybe not earlier, I mentioned a couple of days ago that I feel like Scrapper, the young male with that black eye, I almost feel like he's really coming into his personality. He's got some serious strength of character coming through. I wonder if he's the male mating. It's interesting because he's one of the youngest. You would actually expect it to be the blonde male, Blondie. He's about a year older than the others, and he probably has the best prospects at the moment. Although the nice thing about these male coalitions, and the reason that they form such tight bonds, is that almost all of them, probably all of them at some stage in their life, will have a chance to mate with a female. Squirrel's shouting. Picks up squirrel. What have you seen? Always listen to squirrels. And this is a very cross squirrel. Keep your eyes peeled. Just checking for birds of prey as well. Ourselves and try and figure out what it was that upset the squirrel so terribly. We were chatting about the Birmingham boys. Lisa, I'm afraid the sub-adult Salala hasn't been found, although I actually haven't heard any updates on the Salalas full stop. Stop here for one moment. Check in the drainage line. This is a perfect hiding hole for both Birmingham boys and leopards. They like this spot. But our squirrel friend has gone quiet. Maybe the threat wasn't as serious as I thought it was. Lisa, I haven't heard any updates on the Salalas since we last saw them on Boetela on the main access road, when they pulled a very sneaky move on me and left sooner than I thought they would that night. I haven't heard about them since. They could be hiding out in Buffelshoek. They've definitely attempted veto for the moment. I've said that I think that sub-adult male is dead. I really hope I'm wrong. Guys, thank you so much for staying with us, and we do apologize for, in our ongoing war against the gremlins who attack our technology every now and again, they have struck a blow to our Gowrie repeater, which means that which is what James is frantically working on at the moment. Okay, update. Since I left you, we were tracking the Birmingham boys. We knew the two of them were on Juma. We must have missed them by about 5 minutes. They've just dashed across Cheetah Cut Line. I raced there, did a big circle, came back, and they're now apparently actually chasing each other and fighting slightly over that female. That being said, as far as I can tell from the radio comms, only one of them that raced across. We're still missing the other. It looks to me like two sets of tracks crossed across. Let me try that again. Let's try that whole sentence again. I can see two sets of male tracks going back into Torchwood. That being said, I can only see one set of tracks on this road. We could still have the potential of one of them lying up somewhere in the shade. Keep your eyes peeled, because this is where he would be. It would be somewhere here. It's a tricky one, because the female and the male from earlier walked across back that way. We could still have the hope of a Birmingham boy being somewhere in these bushes, hidden away. They look like they came from, I know they came from, Buffalo's Hook Dam. My word, we must have just missed them. We were split seconds. I don't know, maybe half an hour we missed them at the dam, because we were there earlier. So I'm backtracking them now, I'm reverse tracking to see if we can pick up on where that other male is. As I said, I think I see two sets of tracks crossing, but you never know, so fingers crossed. Where are you, boy? Are you hiding here somewhere in the shade? Whilst I continue my search for the one remaining missing Birmingham boy, let's head across to Scott and his elephants.
Well, as you can see, we've come across, yes, another herd of elephants, and there's a tiny little baby hiding behind its mother here. If we're just patient, I'm sure we're going to get some good views. There's a strong chance this mother's going to keep feeding towards us. Keep coming this way, Mom. And that way we will get to see your tiny little baby. There it is. How cute is this? And it's always wonderful when elephant cows bring their calves close to us, as ordinarily they tend to kind of keep them away, but this is going to be incredible. And we may find that this young calf even decides to come and greet us and give us a little bit of attitude, because it's feeling confident because its mother's very close by. Cute, look at that. Looks like it's been crying. A lot of moisture running down from its eye there. Not too sure what that's all about. And I'm just hearing some exciting reports. I know Jamie's been hot on the trail of some lions that she's hoping to find, and there are some lions that have already been located. It's one female and two males, and the two males seem to be chasing that one female, and Taxon has just reported over the radio waves that there's a strong chance that they could head on to Juma. So let's hope that happens, as it'll be really interesting to see some lion behavior. I'm just going to try and reposition the vehicle quickly. There we go. Well, that calf, I'm not too sure how old it is exactly, but I'd guess certainly under a year of age, possibly even considerably younger than that. It's really, really cute. It's chewing on its trunk now. There you can see that moisture running down from its eyes. It may have got some grass seeds or something that's kind of irritated its eyes. That's not normal, but nothing too serious, I don't think. Its eyes also look quite red. but being that height, moving through a lot of vegetation, you can understand that it may have got something small caught in there, a little grass seed or something. We've got a wonderful low angle here, and we're almost kind of eye level with it, which makes such a difference. Look at how furry it is compared to the adults. Oh, these are some wonderful shots. Well done to Jandre on camera. Hello, virtual tourist watching in Dallas. Good to have you with us. Our virtual tourist has heard, I'm guessing possibly from Brent, that elephants love wild asparagus. And our virtual tourist would like to know, are there any plants that elephants dislike, that they won't really feed on? And one tree that elephants and most other animals generally won't feed on is the tambuti tree. It's got a very milky latex which is toxic to most animals. Occasionally I have seen giraffe feeding on tambuti leaves, and porcupine, interestingly enough, enjoy feeding on the bark from the tambuti tree. That tree is also toxic to us as humans, and even barbecuing over a tambuti coal could make you sick, and just the smoke from that fire, let alone eating meat cooked off it, will possibly make you sick as well. So that's one tree that a lot of the animals out here will avoid. But there are others out here that the animals don't like. The euphorbias are also toxic and not fed on typically by most animals. Well, I'm not too sure what this youngster's trying to do. It looks like it may be practicing its moonwalking there. It's reversing skills. And even learning how to get to grips with that ridiculous nose of his. Their trunks take a lot of time to get the hang of, and a youngster of this age will still have a lot of coordination that it needs to figure out with its trunk. Got another youngster just coming up in front of the vehicle here. And youngsters of this age can often be quite entertaining. They can often come up and charge us, ears out, displaying how big and strong they are. So be ready for that. It doesn't seem too focused on us for the time being though, and it looks like the tasty morsels that it's feeding on are more important, but it could change tune just like that. This is so awesome. Look at its eyelashes. It's so close to us. And while we've got such a close-up view of its eyes, it's a good time to answer Monique in London's question. She would like to know, is it true that elephants cry? And not that I've seen, Monique. Obviously they can weep from their eyes, and they do from time to time, but I don't think they weep or cry in the same fashion that we as humans do. What they do, and like I mentioned a little bit earlier on the drive, is they will sweat or leak from their temporal glands, a gland between their eye and their ear hole. And there's a great video of that on the Safari Live page when a pack of wild dogs start giving elephant cow a bit of a hard time, and you can actually immediately see the sweating. Oh, here's another youngster coming in, and this is turning out to be a huge herd elephant streaming towards us. This is going to be absolutely awesome. Sorry, Monique, as I was saying though, there's a temporal gland that runs down the side of an elephant's head, and you can actually, in this video of highlights from a morning with wild dogs, you can see that temporal gland literally dripping as she gets worked up over the wild dog. I'm tempted just to reverse a little bit to give Jandre a few better options to film, because they are going to pop into a little clearing shortly. There we go. There's the little calf again. And again, notice how much hair it's got on its body compared to the adult, little fur ball. And the sunlight has certainly helped pick up those tiny little hairs on its back. Well, this is a question I've never had before from Julia in Houston, and Julia's honestly been thinking about the elephant's haphazard way of feeding and would like to know if there's any chance that they would feed on caterpillars as they are munching on the leaves. And yes, Julia, most certainly, I'm sure lots of caterpillars, possibly even chameleons, get the unfortunate fate of being consumed by an elephant, but it's not going to play any harmful effects towards the elephants. I doubt. They are just too big for a caterpillar's little spines to have any itching or irritation on an elephant. Would be highly, highly unlikely, and you probably find that the elephants don't even know that they have consumed little insects along the way. I'm guessing snakes, arboreal snakes, could well have also been consumed by elephants, or at least attempted to be consumed by elephants over the years. But I've never actually seen them feeding on any animals. You'd have to be an eagle eye to be able to spot that. Isn't this wonderful? What a great angle. And it sounds like there's some good prospects. It sounds like the lion are moving towards Juma, and Jamie's racing in that direction, and I'm thinking I may even head into that area to give her a hand. If they do come into our property, she may battle to stay with them. They're moving into quite a thick area, and by having two vehicles there may make sense, but it's not going to be easy to leave this herd of elephants. Okay, we're going to rush you over to Jamie's vehicle.
Look how lucky we got. It's one of the Birmingham boys, and he is on Torchwood. Females running. They're running after her. We can't cross through, but they're moving. Something's upset. He's chasing the female. I'm hoping they're going to come back here. We can't go across in this direction. Why did they change their direction? Oh, they just came through. They're disappearing off that way. Oh, he's chasing her. The Birmingham boys are definitely up and about. We just saw one of them really briefly. There's a female that they're following, and they're racing around. We've still got another male, I think. I'm going to go back to them, trying to stay with the action. He's lying down again. They could well come back towards us. There's the other male. He's going to approach at a more sedate rate. Here he comes through. Now apparently what's been happening is they are chasing each other. No problem. Thanks for getting me here. Yeah, that's affirmative, thanks. And we've still got visual of the one Madorda. Shame. Taxon went out of his way. He called me, he said, come fast, race towards this patch of cheetah cut line. He really kindly got us a view of them. And unfortunately, playing games, in the words of Taxon, chasing each other around and going in the opposite direction. Oh, that was very dramatic for the moment. Now they've disappearing off into Torchwood, but there's a really, really good chance that they could come back. But they're not going to do so immediately. There, I can just see him disappearing. They're lying down apparently just on the other side of the termite mound, exactly where we can't go. Oh well, it was worth it just for that excitement. At least we know some of the goings on in the Birmingham boy world. I'm going to shift backwards a little bit so I can follow where these cars are going. See if we can get a view. I don't think so. Oh well, totally worth the rush of racing around. We got them very briefly right on our boundary before they ducked off and back towards Torchwood. And I get the impression that that's what's been happening all night. I've been looking at their tracks, backwards, forwards, round to Buffelshoek Dam, back towards Torchwood. I think the female is wanting to mate with one of them, but they can't quite decide who gets that opportunity. The two males have been chasing her and fighting over her a little bit. Hopefully she doesn't get caught in the middle of that conflict. Still no sign of the other boy though. I only saw two males, which means that third one could still be around. I wonder if they're going to change direction again. They have just done, by my calculations, probably about 2 full circles around this area. And they could well do a third, so let's stay with them and see what happens. Here comes one of the other vehicles. It's heading off into the block. They're obviously racing around, just watching what the other cars are doing. So this chase is not over. We could still see them come back towards us. Okay, well, for the moment, I know that I can rely definitely on Andrew to call me back if they pop around here. So perhaps we shall continue on a more sedate pace up Cheetah Cut Line, see if maybe they pop out further up. Tracks everywhere, and this does commonly happen within coalitions, that I mentioned everybody gets a chance to mate, but a lot of the time, especially with these girls, their first few opportunities to have access to females, they do come into conflict with each other. And a lot of the injuries that we've seen on the Birmingham males in the last few moments, or the last few weeks, sorry, a lot of them have been inflicted by each other. Oh, I know that Scott is still with the elephants, and I'm going to try and find these Birmingham boys for you again, but let's head across to Scott for now.
So some exciting stuff going on there with the lions. Glad to hear you got a few glimpses. Just trying to work out what our best angle is. There's elephants all around us, but none of them are in a good spot to view. So I think what we'll do is we'll wait here. You can see one down to our right, a youngster, and there are a few more moving towards us from the other side of the road, and when they do get into a better spot we'll show you them, because again we're going to have a wonderful low angle. Hello to... Oh, that one had a funny tusk. I think I recognize her. It's Fang's cousin, whose tusk also grows in a strange nature, kind of one forward, one backwards. We've got an interesting question through from Edward, and I'm glad you've asked this, Edward, because it appears we have a myth that needs busting here and clearing up. Edward's heard that elephants get drunk on marula fruits, on fermented marula fruits. And not only that, there's a twist in a commonly spoken about myth that they do get drunk on these marula fruits, but on top of that, that it's got something to do with eating insects that may be rotting, or they may induce the fermentation process. Whoever told you that, Edward, was talking absolute nonsense, and please make sure that they get this message, because marula fruits do not ferment and form alcohol. You would need yeast to be a part of that chemical reaction in order to create alcohol. So just a rotting fruit lying underneath a tree will never turn into an alcoholic fruit. So elephants do not get drunk. It was from an old movie, I can't remember the name of the movie, made many years ago, and what they did was they had a scene of an elephant eating marula fruits, and then they tranquilized that elephant, and as the effects of the tranquilizer were kicking in and it became evidently groggy or drunk, it appeared that in fact it was getting drunk on the marula fruits. But it is a myth, and it is certainly not the case. Chandra, Anna, stay where you are. There was a youngster thinking about coming up to greet us on the left, but it's decided against it, and we're getting such great views of this individual. Although I think Chandra has made the right move. It's holding its trunk up high, and it may decide to come and show itself to us. Failing that, it's moving towards other members, which we were waiting to come out from the thick bush, where we are going to again get some great low angles. So Edward, sorry about that. Elephants don't get drunk. And interesting, there was that little extra tidbit of the insect part of your story that I'd never heard before. And the great thing about Safari Live is that we get to clear up these myths and old wives' tales. It's phenomenal how many guides spread false information. So good that we're on a platform where we can clear everything up. What would be interesting though, Edward, is how much alcohol would it take to make an elephant even tipsy? Because they are such massive beings. There is a liqueur that they would possibly like to drink called amarula, which is made from the fruits of the marula tree, which they love to feed on. And if you are a fan of liqueurs, it would be worth having a look around for amarula. Delicious with ice, or even mixed in to vanilla ice cream with a milkshake. Hello Philip in West Virginia. Good to have you on board with us. Now Philip's asking whether elephants without tusks that we've seen will eventually grow them. Now I'm not sure exactly which individual you're talking about, but there is an age when elephants are between their first and second sets of tusks, and that's usually when they're around 1 to 2 years old, possibly even up to 3. They may not have tusks evidently pushing out of their mouths. Their first sets of milk tusks last for about the first 6 months of their life, roughly, and then fall out. They never protrude and are in view. But then the second set of tusks, which will hopefully last them their whole life if they don't break, will start to grow and protrude from anywhere from 2 to 3 years of age. Now if they are older than that and they don't have any tusks evident, then they will obviously have some kind of a genetic problem. And it's not uncommon for elephants, especially in certain areas, to be tuskless. Here in the Sabi Sands, it's uncommon to see tuskless elephants, but it still happens every now and then. Now Molly has noticed that there are one or two elephants with a few cuts in the ears and holes in the ears, and would like to know if it is painful when they hurt their ears. And I'm fairly certain it is, Molly. Just for any animal, a wound would inflict pain, even elephants. How much pain would be impossible for me to let you know. But I have got not a shadow of doubt that any injury, big or small, would cause pain to them. But it looks like that is the rear end of the last elephant that is going to cross the road in front of us. And what I'm thinking of doing, and I can't resist on the action with what's happening with these lion and torch, which is just to the east of our property, and I'm going to get into that area, and maybe another lion will pop up a little bit away from where Jamie is. Toodle-doo elephants. Well, thank you so much to Maggie for the update on the movie, in which the drunk elephant has helped to spread these fermented marula fruit rumors. And the movie is called Animals Are Beautiful People. What a bizarre name if you're asking me, but thanks Maggie. And I can't express how fortunate we all are to be on this live safari, especially with people like Maggie who are helping provide us with interesting information, where so often you guys do help out, because my little memory certainly doesn't cater for all of the questions and stuff that you guys want to know about, and all the combined knowledge of us together make for what I think is a really interesting safari. So thank you for that, and now at least a few of you will be able to search out that clip, and now you'll know the story behind it. I've got a very interesting update. I bumped into Doug just a little bit early on. He's one of the guides at Sibambili. Really experienced guide and a wonderful, wonderful chap. And he said that he's been lucky enough to see two of the Birmingham males this morning fighting over a lady, one of the Styx lioness, I'm told. And it was a scrapper, one of the males, and another one of the Birminghams. We're not too sure which one it was. Doug's description was the one that looks like a big bear. So if any of you can relate to Doug, then you'll know. But interestingly enough, Scrapper was the one that came out dominant over this lady-induced fight. And it's a good example of what we've spoken about in the past, that even though they are a coalition and they are teammates, throw a lady into the mix and that will change and they'll compete for dominance. So Scrapper was dominant over one of the other males. It was just the two of them together. I'm guessing the other two males that are around could be the males that are here on Torchwood, just to the east of us. day we will be fortunate to be in a situation where we can actually show you these lions interacting with one another, because I feel that more often than not we are just telling you stories about it, sadly. Hello to Casey in New York, and you ask a great question, wondering what age will male lions be capable of mating, and anywhere from about 5 years of age, which is the kind of rough age of all 5 of the Birminghams. They're in that age roughly, some possibly slightly older, some possibly slightly younger, but that is the age where they will start to mate. They may attempt to mate earlier on, from even 2 to 3 years of age, but will lack the knowledge and ability to do so. But they'll start becoming sexually inquisitive from anywhere around 3 years of age, as we've seen with Junior, a young male in the Nkahuma Pride, who's been attempting to mate with his mother and his aunts and sisters, thankfully unsuccessfully. So the lions are moving somewhere on our right hand side, and I think Jamie's further up this road, standing by listening to the radio, hoping to get updates from the guides who do have permission to traverse this land to our east. Mentioned that these Birmingham males have got into a little bit of a scrap with one another over a lady, and Linda would like to know what the likelihood is of them fighting to the death. And Linda, that would be highly unlikely that they would fight to the death with one of their own coalition members. It's more of, think of it as an arm wrestle, possibly, but certainly not a battle to the death. Now, for those of you who are watching earlier on the safari, you would have got to see a number of these beautiful antelope, the Inyala, interacting with one another, doing a kind of similar thing, it sounds like, to what Scrapper and that other male lion were doing. They were kind of fighting and feeling one another out, seeing who was the most dominant, with a series of different displays. This one's horns come incredibly close together at the top. Just a small kind of thing that I've noticed there, that some of you may also pick up on. They usually don't meet that close together. And Jennifer in Toronto would like to know if male and Nyala have a similar kind of game plan to zebra stallions. Will they compete for a harem of females throughout the year? Look at him cleaning his big bushy tail there. And no, that's not the case. The male and Nyala will only compete when it's the time of year for mating. And you may now then ask yourself the question as to why would they be competing right now when it's the time for Nyala females to be giving birth. And the reason for that is there'll be a spike in estrogen amongst a lot of the female antelope before they give birth, and this excites the males. The same thing will happen with male impala. Even though there's no mating opportunities, it's just the pheromones in the air which get them excited. But in a normal scenario, when the females are coming into season, the male Inyala will then compete for them and then mate with them and then carry on. They will not continually compete for them throughout the year, as will zebra stallions. It's really heating up now, and he's enjoying relaxing in the shade here. And I'm thinking about going to find some shade for myself to relax in for 5 or 10 minutes. Only kidding, we're going to keep looking for animals. But Jamie has got something interesting on her vehicle, I'm told. So enjoy whatever it is.
Well, we're still sitting on cheetah cutline, desperately waiting for the lions to decide to change direction, and listening to the mad chase that's been happening on Torchwood. And while we're doing that, I have a plant for you, or to show you. It's on the Torchwood side, so I can't go and pick it. But it's a very interesting looking thing. This is not a quiz. I don't know what it is. I will be asking the presenters a bit later whether or not they know what it is. It looks to me like it's in the cucumber family. There is a type of African wild cucumber known as Cucumis zahiri, which looks very similar but is more spiny. This is kind of fuzzy looking and very much looks as though it's a baby watermelon. It is not, of course, a baby watermelon. I would guess, really, in our experience of bush knowledge and the plants that we find out here, anything that looks vaguely cucumber or melon related should be avoided at all costs. You run serious risks of messing, especially with the membranes in your lungs. For some reason, that's what the toxins target, and you get what's known as pleural edema, leakage of fluid and blood into your lungs, eventually resulting in suffocation. So dangerous but innocent looking. Really does look like a baby watermelon. It is not. I don't know what it is, guys. If you have any idea as to what it might be, you can send that through to #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email it through to us at questions@wildearth.tv, and I will do some research for you and report back, let you know what I think it might be. I'm busy half listening to the game drive updates. Sounds as though the lions are now running east. Definitely plenty of drama. Definitely plenty of drama happening with the lions on that side. They're moving around, chasing that female up and down and up and down. Absolute chaos. Alright, well, I'm going to slowly drive upwards and downwards cheetah cutline in the hope that our lion friends come back to us. Still, even if they don't, incredibly good prospects for this afternoon. There's still a male missing, but I can hear zebra alarm calling off in that direction, which makes me think he might be hanging out there. We can finish up with the quiz that I asked you all. Now, I've said I'll accept essentially two answers for what made it. Right. Bolus. It's not a bolus. It's something simpler than that. It's not actually being swallowed and then brought back up again the same way, but it's... Where I left off, the signal went a bit patchy there. From Smiles, Teresa, Donna, and a couple of others, you suggested it was a bolus from a giraffe eating knobthorns, and Pretty Nightmare, you suggested it was marula leaves eaten by an elephant. Right, let's have a look at it, because we've got so many different answers. I'll tell you what I think it is. I will say, for those of you who said giraffe, I'll give it to you, but but I personally don't think so. I think it came from a different animal. I'm stopping in the shade, guys. It's already baking hot. Let's pop it back up again. Right, as I said, it's not a bolus in that it's been swallowed before. I think it's an elephant that has been chewing on it. And you've seen how messy they can be. Sometimes they chew for a while and bits drop out of their mouths. Now the reason that I'm adding elephant is just the way that it has been chewed. Giraffe tend not to be as messy eaters as elephants tend to be. You do sometimes, which is why I'm going to accept it as an answer. You don't often see giraffe dropping their food in the same way that you see elephants dropping their food. In terms of what plant it is, that was a difficult one, and I picked up an example. It was fresh when I planned this quiz. I picked up an example of what I think it is, and that also reinforces the fact that it was probably an elephant chewing, just in terms of the vein structure and the type of plant that is. This is an apple leaf. Now that was a really hard question, so no stress if you didn't get it right. It's a slightly young one, but the raised veins underneath at the lower surface of the tree and the fact that they alternate is what led me to believe that it is an elephant chewing, being rather messy, and dropping it out of its mouth. Might even be an example of when we see them showing displacement behavior, where they pretend to eat but kind of don't really swallow. It just slides out of their mouth. But a really well done to you all, because that was a difficult one. I'm very impressed that you at least got towards the answers. Just in terms of the answer to marula leaves, they're a little bit bigger than that, and they're much bigger than knobthorn leaves. So that's how we can tell the difference. Basically, all we've got is an example, and you can picture it in your mind. We've seen them do this so many times. Picture it, the elephant taking a mouthful, chewing, and a little bit maybe just falling out of the corner of its mouth, or just deciding actually it doesn't like that and spitting it out. That was the end point of the quiz, and a very well done to all of you for your answers. They were all exceptionally good. We're starting to produce pros out here. I'm very, very impressed. Unfortunately, no sign of the lions. I'm listening with half an ear to the updates from Andrew. He's keeping me updated as to what's happening. They're coming and going. They are running ragged. Oh, more leaf litter to attach itself to me. And you have to feel for that poor female. It can't be fun being right in the middle of that conflict between those males. And this is, we've seen it, well, I say we've, like I was there. I've heard of it happening with the Mapofo males when they were fighting over females, that it actually got to the point where they killed the female that they were trying to mate with, just because their aggression and their testosterone gets hyped up so much that they lose control of what they're actually doing, and they fight the first thing that gets in their way, which is quite often the female. But fingers crossed, that won't be what happens with the Birmingham boys. I'm wishing that female all the best, and I think that's probably why she's been racing around. Well, it's been an incredibly exciting morning, lots of action, even though most of it happened on that side, but at least we got that very our Birmingham boys for the Sunset Safari, and fingers crossed we will have more updates for you as to what happened on Torchwood and whether or not they're going to head back across to us. And a big thanks to Tebs for his fantastic company, as well as his wonderful camera work, of course, and to all of you for your questions and your comments and your brilliantly thought through answers to the quiz. Guys, I will see you this afternoon for the Sunset Safari. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world.
So, another wonderful morning on safari is drawing to a close. We are making our way towards the Juma waterhole. And as it's heating up, I'm guessing that's what's happening there, but I don't. Just going on my gut feeling. And while we make our way there, I can dispel another myth that has been fed to one of our safari goers, Reese. And Reese has been told or has heard that you should not look animals in the eye, as it could make them feel uneasy and induce a charge or induce some kind of negative response or behavior. There's two different animals where you'll act differently with regards to that. We'll start with lion and leopard. When a lion charges you, or at any point really, you can make eye contact with them. It's not an issue. But especially when they charge you, it's important to maintain eye contact, lock eyes with them, stand your ground, shout and scream, and hope that they jam on brakes before jumping onto you, which they will do 9 times out of 10. If you stand your ground, if you shout and scream, making yourself look big as possible, and maintain eye contact. Leopards, on the other hand, require different tactics, and you do not make eye contact with them. Being shy and elusive animals ordinarily, they don't like knowing that they've been seen. And another example which kind of may help to emphasize eye contact is if and when you're tracking a leopard on foot, for example, they will rely on their camouflage, and they will know that they have got the ability to remain unseen by things walking very close to them. So if I was walking along and all of a sudden I saw a leopard just down a few meters away from me, like the base of this tree here, rather than stopping and locking eye contact with it as we've done now, what would be better to do, as I'll simulate it now, if this tree was a leopard, would be to walk along and then realize, oh my word, there's a leopard right there, but I'm not going to stop, I'm just going to keep moving. And that way the leopard's going to remain lying there thinking, well, that silly human didn't even see me, so I don't have to worry about anything, I don't have to charge them, I don't have to feel threatened, and then I continue to walk, get back in the vehicle, and come back and do it in the vehicle. So that's an example of where you wouldn't want to make eye contact. But with all the other animals, buffalo, rhino, elephants, hippo, it's fine to make eye contact with them. So, again, it seems like a morning where we've got to clear up a lot of myths and misnomers as to what to do on safari. Now the next theory that's been put forward from Vernie in Zimbabwe is one that I do not know a conclusive answer to, but I'll be willing to share my opinion on it. And that is that Vernie's pointed out the impala in East Africa, kind of Tanzania and Kenya, are a bit of a subspecies to the impala you get here. They look identical, but the horns of the East African impala are much bigger. And Vernie has heard or seems to think that that is because the East African rut is more serious, and that's why the impala there need bigger horns in order to compete with one another. To me that doesn't make sense, Vernie. Even if the impala here are all equally matched against one another and they've got smaller horns than the East African ones, I don't think horn size is going to have a massive impact on the fighting that they do, and I don't think it's any more or less ferocious between the subspecies. So, not too sure what the end of well, that's my kind of final conclusion, and it sounds like we are at the end of the safari. So thanks so much to Jeandre on camera, Jerry in final control, and Tara who was lending her a hand there. And I hope you all enjoyed yourself. I certainly did. And you may want to tune into the Djuma Dam Cam. There's a rock monitor lizard waiting there for you, and we will see you all on the Sunset Safari.
You